and gentlemen.
Hello everyone and welcome to this tutorial on designing an album cover for a Scottish album. Albums in Scotland, as you can see by some of these covers here, have been very varied over the years and have included all different kinds of designs, patterns, ideas to reflect the artist, the music and to appeal to a really wide audience. Some of the album covers that you can see here are very simple with really clear text on a simple background. They include photographs, a colour scheme, pictures, in some cases landscapes that are quite recognisable to the audience, or maybe quite abstract artistic designs. But to make our design today, we're going to use the app Procreate, and we're going to create a square canvas like so. Now on my square canvas I have added, using the spray paint effect, 3 different colours. A purpley kind of colour into a bluey kind of indigo colour into a lighter blue. And if you watch what I'm doing just now, I'm just smudging those colours together. Now the good thing about using the spray paint effects in Procreate, you put lots of colour onto the canvas really quite quickly, and then you can use the various different smudging effects. In this case I'm using a water smudge effect to then blend those colours together, especially if you're looking for a really strong colour palette in the background. Now, when I'm happy with the level of smudge that I've chosen to create here, I'm almost creating like a sky, that kind of dusky look to a sky, if you think of those colours from when it's been a really nice, bright, sunny day and we're heading into night time. Those are the kind of colours I'm looking for. And I've chosen now a particular type of pen effect where if I add more pressure to my screen on my iPad with my stylus or Apple Pencil, or your finger if you're drawing with your finger, the line will go from slightly thinner to slightly thicker, which is a nice responsive technique here. Now this is inspired by the album cover that you saw with the landscape of Glasgow in particular, and I wonder if you can tell which landmark on the Clyde side or across the Clyde, to be more accurate, I've chosen to go with here. Now obviously there will be fantastic artists out there, but this design that I've chosen to go for is a very simple one, and hopefully you will recognise what some people have now called the Squinty Bridge, or officially is called the Clyde Arc. Now most album covers, including the ones I've given you some examples of here, are trying to give you more information, a clue about the artist themselves through the design that's been chosen. Now because my album here is going to be a compilation album with lots of different artists featured on it, I'm choosing the theme of a bridge between 2 famous music venues and concert venues in Glasgow. One being the Armadillo, hopefully you recognise that, and the other would be the Hydro. And I'm using that as a symbol to connect the past and the present, as well as the music of these various different artists. Now before I go any further with my design, what I'm doing here is I've taken a new layer by tapping on the 2 squares in the top right hand corner, and I've then tapped on the spanner in the top left hand corner, and I've chosen to add some text. Now of course on an album cover, text is very important because that tends to tell you 2 really key things: the name of the artist and the name of the album. And it's also very important that the text stands out, jumps out by being a really bold, bright colour, by being a really clear font, and also by making sure that it's very readable to the people who are looking at the album cover, make them want to lift it off the shelf. Now I've gone for this bright pink colour because it contrasts with the darker background I've gone for, but of course you could choose any colour. Now normally at the top of the album we would have the name of the performing artist,
And in this case, because my album is for a group of different artists, I've called my album here Glasgow 850, but normally that's where the name of the artist or the band would go. And underneath or somewhere else on the album, I would have the name of the album itself. Now it could be named after a main single or a main track on the album, or it could have another title entirely. Again, I've taken another layer here, and what I'm doing is I've zoomed in and I'm adding some other details, musical notes in this case and some other smaller details, which are great to add in once you've zoomed in on your album cover. Means it's a bit less fiddly as well to add these finer details. Now you'll notice I've also just added a kind of light smudge effect to the bottom half of the album to make it look like there is a reflection on the River Clyde itself of the venues that I've drawn. So it's just a very light smudge. And there is the title of the album in that paler pink colour, which is called Birthday Celebration. So of course that title reflects Glasgow having a very special birthday this year, 850 years old this year. Now my final couple of details for my design here for my album cover, which is, as I said, a compilation of artists, a mixture of artists, all contributing songs for what is a birthday celebration, is along the bottom I'm adding an audience. Now, a very simple way of drawing audience members, you might already know, but this might be something new to you, is to draw a shape that looks a bit like a keyhole. If you were drawing a keyhole, a circle with a sort of triangle shape coming from it down to the bottom there. And what that does is it creates a line of audience members. Now you can do more than one line and just intersperse your audience members. Or like this, you can have one row and you can have them all waving their hands and looking like they're having a really good time, which is lovely. And it adds another layer of detail to your album cover, but doesn't take anything away from the really bold choice of text, font, spacing of the letters, all these little details that Procreate lets you play around with. Now, in this bottom section, bottom half of the album cover, this is an opportunity for me to add a little bit more detail. And again, I'm going to take the opportunity here to add another piece of text. Well, because, as I said to you already, this is a compilation album, it includes more than one artist. I would want to include on my album cover some examples of the artists who might be featuring on here. So you can see here again I've added some text, and this time I'm going to stick with black text because it matches the colour scheme that I've gone for. I don't want this text to jump out more than the artist's name and the album name itself. I want this text to be the second thing you read or third thing you read. And in here along the edge of my bridge, along the edge of my design, I'm adding some of the names of the artists. In this case I've added Clyde Chorus. I'm mentioning that there might be sing-along tracks on this particular album, and maybe some of the other artists that might be included here. Now you might have a list of artists from Scotland or Glasgow who are your favourite artists, people you like to listen to, people you might even have seen in places like the Hydro, and you could include these in here. This would be a lovely design to add. And again, you could add things freehand here, designs, parts of the design that are completely freehand, drawn with a stylus or with an Apple pen, or you could add other shapes that are pre-made onto this if you really wanted. Now, as well as sharing this design with you, I wanted just to point out to you that Procreate does allow you to use a really lovely mixture actually of freehand design, designs which feature the drawing tools and various features within the app itself, and the opportunity to drop in pictures that you may have collated onto your iPad, designs, ideas, patterns like this tartan, for example. You might like this particular tartan and want it to feature on your album cover, but you're just not sure how. Using the little cursor tool at the top, you can really play around with pictures and images that you have, and in this case I used the warp tool and I was playing around with it with this particular tartan when I made this shape, which to my mind actually reminded me of a tent. But what does a tent have to do with music? Well, to me that made me think of music festivals and the fact that Scotland and Glasgow have been host to many music festivals over the years, with lots of Scottish artists having played at them very famously. And so it made me think of using this quite block colour idea for the backdrop of the album cover, but with the tartan featuring as the tent itself. This is just one idea, another idea for you to think about, depending on the artist or the type of album you're depicting. So a couple of designs to share with you then. This one with a warp design in the centre on a graduated colour backdrop. This one here with the album artist at the top with a bagpipe design in the centre, partly freehand and partly with the warped picture in the centre to make the bagpipes look very 3D, and then the album title to the bottom, and then finally the main design that we worked on together today. So please have a go in Procreate, be as creative as you possibly can. It can be for a fictional band, a real band, a band that you've just created in your mind, and it could be representing the whole of Scotland or Glasgow in particular. Really looking forward to seeing your suggestions and designs. Good luck!